Hello, welcome. It's wonderful to see you here tonight. Sylvia and I wanted to have an event, a local author event. We came to the library and asked. They put a circle on a date for us. And then you all showed up. So you're actually making this event an event. And we want to say thank you. From two local authors, we want to say thank you. And I'm Andrew Gilchrist. I've lived in Belleville and Trenton for most of my life. And as Virginia said, I do love to play with ideas. My book is in some ways one long game, one long riddle, one long puzzle. And I'd like to start with a review from someone right here in the Belleville area. Danielle. Danielle was one of the very first to get my book. And when I asked her about it, this is what she said. I'll have to do this manually here. This book made me mad. Oh. You can imagine my reaction. As the writer, one word came to mind. One single word. Good. Maybe I better give some context. I've known Danielle's dad for about 20 years. What made Danielle mad was not really the book itself. It was the recurring pattern that I talk about in the book. The recurring pattern is a daughter sacrifice. Imagine a very old story where a king gives his princess to a dragon. Or imagine a newer story like maybe the paper bag princess, where a princess has to take on a dragon. I figured this was a good shot, if nothing else, for today. Robert Munch. This book is probably in the library, actually, I can imagine. It's a classic. And Princess Elizabeth learns a great deal on how to deal with dragons in your life. Unfortunately, she also learns a lot about Prince Ronald. He turns out to be a bum. Has a book ever made you mad? Maybe you got mad at a character, or maybe it was just a headline in a news feed instead. Think for a moment about the names of those characters that you love to hate. They might be fictional, or maybe they're real, or maybe they're way too real these days. But what do you feel? Is it frustration? Anger? Maybe there's a sense of you know this person is just plain wrong and evil. So what do you do when you get mad? Some people, when they get mad, they get really hot. They get really, really flaming hot. They kick things. They throw things. They just can't contain themselves. They can't control themselves. But some people, when they get mad, get cold. They get very cool, very detached, and they start planning things. It took me years to write this book. Years of planning. And years of cold thought. I want to bring up some characters, some examples of characters that have made me mad. Maybe after you see them, you can tell me characters that made you mad. And we can kind of make it a comparison. I'll start with this particular character, though, and see if you recognize her. Who is this? Anybody? Anybody recognize this character? Dolores Umbridge. Dolores Umbridge seems to be one of those teachers that's just merciless and ruthless, and everybody has a story about a teacher that has made them mad. So mad. But Umbridge, it's kind of almost a set apart. She's got her own sort of style to her. Rowling has done a great job of turning a bunch of characters that you just want to love to hate. Dolores Umbridge is this authoritarian teacher. She's got all rule for everything. But then Voldemort's just a crazy narcissist who wants to live forever. He uses everybody to whatever he wants, and she controls everybody to what she wants. There's another character in Rowling's work, and she has this way of turning dark characters into possibly loved characters. Severus Snape is a good example. He starts shadowy, he's the potions master. He seems to hate Harry. And yet at the end, he becomes one of Harry's best role models for sacrificial love. Snape did love Harry in the end, even if he was kind of mean. And that can be maddening too, actually, come to think of it. Here's another character, a more recent character. This one really made me mad. Do you recognize this guy? If you're a Marvel superheroes fans, this is Thanos. From comic books, movies, Thanos is powerful and committed to his own ambitions. Thanos watched his own planet fall apart because of overpopulation and unchecked use of resources. It was a terrible loss for him and a painful lesson. And as a result of his grief and torment, he came to lose all faith in living things. He judged all life as being wrong, self-destructive, unable to control itself. And he was a man strong enough to do something about it. He was a bit of a narcissist too, a rational tyrant, you might say. He was a man with a mission, and he was ready to do whatever he had to do. Nothing was going to stop him. Nothing. Not even his daughters. Sometimes with books, timing can be everything. I had just finished most of the work for my book, and when I watched with my wife the 2 Avengers movies recently, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Shannon's had a crush on Robert Downey Jr. since the 90s. So it's been really easy to get her to go see these Marvel movies. It's either that or watch The Princess Bride over and over and over again. Anyway, there I was in the theater. It was May this year, and I was completely struck dumb. Why? In a few hours of modern storytelling, almost every theme that I bring up in my book was there on the screen for me. Just as big as life. A superhero story from 2019 was in some ways telling a story that goes back 2,000 years, 2,500 years, 3,000 years, probably even more than that, 30,000 years. That's how long we've been telling stories. Now, spoiler alert, I'm going to reveal something about the movies. Is there anybody here that's really worried about the movies, or have you seen them already? Okay, plug your ears if it's a problem. Thanos was so driven and ambitious, he was willing to do anything to accomplish his goal. And he faced a test. In order to get what he wanted, he had to make a sacrifice. Only if he sacrificed something he truly loved would he get his goal. Who went with him on this journey but his daughter? Thanos had to make a choice, either change his mind or adjust course, have some second thoughts. Or he could destroy his daughter. One moment I was in the theater in Belleville, but in an instant I was back thousands of years in the Middle East. There's a very old biblical story about an ambitious leader named Jephthah. I talk about him in the introduction to my book. He wanted to win a battle so much, he would sacrifice whatever came out of his home when he came home. So he won the battle, he returned home, and what ends up happening but his daughter comes out to greet him. Jephthah becomes a torn man at this point, but he kept his word. He made a promise. So in doing so, his entire family fell apart. He ended up a ruined man, and so many of his own ambitions came like ash and bones in a grave. In an instant, I was back 1,000 years and in ancient Greece. You see, there's a very old story about the city of Athens and the Trojan War. Hand up, have you heard of the Trojan War? One of those very old stories. Agamemnon was a king of the Greeks. He was bold, he was ambitious. He really wanted to conquer Troy and burn it to the ground. Problem was he couldn't control the weather. To show how serious he was, though, he ended up sacrificing his daughter to the gods. And even the gods had to take pause at that, take notice of something. Agamemnon got to Troy, he burned Troy, and when he returned home, his own wife killed him in revenge for their daughter. And then their own children killed the mother in revenge. You can see where this family's going, right? Noble family destroyed. Revenge just doesn't keep a family together. Now, I've gone into some heavy stuff here, but there are reasons to get mean. Remember, there's reasons to get mad with some of these things. And I want to show how long we've been struggling with some of these stories, these family relationships, and what's at stake. So, this brings me to my reading. This is from my introduction. This little passage is called Voices in Song, and I talk a little bit about my mom and a little bit about the United Church, where I grew up. If there ever was a broad tent church open to talking about things, it is the United Church. Though not as progressive as some would wish, the United Church was one of the front runners for recognizing women as ministers. People of different sexual orientations have been accepted as full members, even clergy. Some members are even openly atheist. When a minister identified herself as an atheist, the church received some media attention. This came about in part because she believed the use of the word, that word, authoritative word God, was too closely associated today with magical and supernatural thinking. In a figurative way, this is all part of a church coming to terms with its own identity in the modern world. But it could also stand as a signal of resignation to the shifting modern and now postmodern popular mindset. Novelty. The power of novelty pops again and again and again. Still, though, something kept me away from church. From adolescence into adulthood, something about religious traditions conflicted with my personal identity. My father began to play with winemaking, and it eventually became something of a hobby we would share. I kind of wish I actually had a bottle right now. That hobby captivated my attention and my interest more than going to church or putting on a smile for such nice, well-meaning people. Even in the United Church, as open-minded as it tries to be, it wasn't having the conversations I wanted to have. Now, at one point, my mother gave me a song of faith to read. In 2006, the United Church of Canada produced a, quote, timely and contextual statement of faith with a view of circulation throughout the whole church for study and response while honoring the diversity of our church and acknowledging our place in a pluralistic world and an ongoing developing tradition of faith, close quote. That's quite a mouthful. That's quite a wordy explanation for faith and quite a challenge for today. The result was the church's statement called a Song of Faith. It's a document. In the beginning, there were words, and they made the church sing and explain. And in the United Church of Canada, that took document form. A Song of Faith was not meant to be an official creed, but it was supposed to be a poetic expression, an attempt to transcend and connect through text. Now, I didn't find the spiritual journey my mother hoped I would find. But what I did find surprised me. In the first few words, I could see a lingering, subdued version of the attitude that took possession of Agamemnon and Jephthah. So I'll give you a little bit of the song here. God is holy mystery, beyond complete knowledge, above perfect description, yet in love, the one eternal God seeks relationship. So God creates the universe, and with the possibility of being and relating, God tends the universe. Mending the broken, reconciling the estranged, God enlivens the universe, guiding all things towards harmony in their source. Grateful for God's loving action, we cannot keep from singing. Now here comes some names. With the church, through the ages, we speak of God as one and triune, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We also speak of God as Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, God, Christ, and Spirit. Mother, friend, comforter, source of life, living word, bond of love. And in other ways that speak faithfully of the one on whom our hearts rely, the fully shared life at the heart of the universe. We witness to holy mystery, what is holy love. Now, according to the Song of Faith, the United Church first associates God with mystery. Sounds like a good start. Then God recognizes God as one, three, a multiplicity, a community. The words Father, Son, Holy Spirit are mentioned. It could be expected. That's a Christian document. Even the word mother is used, but ultimately the church distills this God as on the one whom our hearts rely. Although perhaps implied in the list, the family's daughter is not present. That word is not mentioned in the entire song. Not the text, not the appendices. The word God, especially capitalized, has other traditional Christian associations: masculinity, dominance, an ideal, authority, leadership, traditional wisdom. Of course, we can add other words to that list: magic, superstition, depending on where you are in your own faith right now. But what is it about the symbolic idea of a daughter that seems so distant from the authoritative associations? Is it not possible, or is it unthinkable, for a heart to rely on a daughter in the tradition of the West? Maybe it's just an oversight, perceptible only by someone caught up in the fixations of postmodern consciousness, someone who likes to play with ideas. But what is it about the word God that we cannot associate with the word daughter? And what would it be like to recognize and respect the role of daughters in a religious or divine language? Maybe there are reasons for not doing this. Maybe it's worth exploring. If you have ever lived with a daughter, you may know how much authority even a little girl can have in a household. The smallest of sounds from a baby girl, for example, can change a heart and compel action in the darkest hours of the night. I was already disillusioned with religious thinking, as much as I was nauseated by pop culture. I knew of Lady Wisdom, Sophia. She's the daughter of God, as she is sometimes known in Western traditions. The expression of that relationship is poetic, but the phrase daughter of God is not the same as an equation. Daughter is God. Or the comparison, God as daughter. I knew of wise Athena, daughter of Zeus. How is it that Athena supported, advised, criticized, even disobeyed, but never actually plotted to overthrow Zeus in Olympus? I didn't see people worshiping wisdom, taking up hard challenges like knowing when to change their minds. Instead, people were playing with novelty, but not really questioning their own routines, their own motivations. In 1879, an amateur archaeologist named Marcelino Sanz de Sautuola explored a cave in Spain. A hunter and his dog came across the cave on the property and told him about it. Sautuola surveyed the cave. He brought his young daughter Maria with him on a later trip. When in the cave, his daughter looked up and gave an exclamation of wonder and surprise. This exclamation got her father's attention and revealed something he did not see the first time. He may have never considered looking up when by himself, but it was something so very natural for a child with a parent. Sautuola and his daughter looked up. To find out what they saw, you'll have to. Now, I do want to end on a positive note, so I'll just wrap up quickly. Thanos is one example I used, and he's a character that makes us mad. But one character in the Marvel Universe has an answer to Thanos, and he's lovable, according to Shannon, but he can also make you mad sometimes, too. So here's another spoiler alert. There's this character, Tony Stark. And in Avengers Endgame, it pretty much starts, with a little scene where he's tucking his little daughter into bed. And the little daughter says, "Dad, I love you 3,000. Tony gets all choked up. He goes in and tells his wife and kind of shows how much he's loved more. Anyway, I do want you to keep that idea in mind with the I love you 3,000, because these are stories that are 3,000 years old, 30,000 years old. If you watch the Avengers movie, or if you see a comic book somewhere, or if you pick up a good book at the library tonight, please pick up good books at the library tonight. Please pay attention to the family relationships in the story. The heroes of those stories, the ones that triumph over evil, all seem to choose their daughters over their ambitions. And maybe just as important, those heroes seem to allow their daughters to hold some sway over their thinking. That's so symbolic, the ability to change your mind at the right time, when the voice of, say, a child offers you some surprising bit of real wisdom. We've been at this for 3,000 years, telling stories, trying to get things right. So I want to leave this with you tonight now. Starting tonight, next time you get mad, next time you get too set in your ways, I want you to hear these words. Perhaps somewhere, maybe in your ears or in your heart or in your mind, you'll have the heart to change your mind. Okay, thank you very much.